What if every brawler had a third gadget? Let's find out, cause I'm gonna be making these all by myself. Shelly makes a tactical run and she runs 25% faster for 4 seconds. Bruce lunges at the nearest enemy player and does 980 damage and also pushes them back. After using this third gadget and unloading his next ammo, Code drops a heavy mag on the ground so any enemy close to him is stunned for 1 second. After using the funny green button, if Bull's next ammo misses an enemy by up to 4 tiles, they are going to be knocked back by 5 tiles. Brock's next ammo can go over walls. El Primo throws the nearest enemy forward, dealing 1080 damage. If they hit a wall or a player, they get damage for 560 damage as well. Barley's super last call catches fire and its range is 21% bigger and deals 9% more damage. Enemies hit by Poco's next main attack is slowed for 2.1 seconds and are also poisoned for 1.5 seconds, which is 400 damage for 0.5 seconds. Rosa's main attack has 175% more range and also does 3% more damage for 5 seconds. Jessie can detonate Scrappy, which releases bullets from every angle before exploding, dealing 1210 damage. Dynamite's super and main attack explodes instantly after landing. The next super tick releases moves in a zigzag pattern, making it harder to hit. Enemies in 8-bit super get slowed for 1 second and 0.3 of their ammo is transferred to 8-bit. Rico's next super can stop attacks that deal lesser damage than Rico's super itself. Daryl slows down enemies hit by his super for 2 seconds and deals 6% more damage for 3 seconds after his super. Penny's gold pouches burst 33% wider and reload 16% faster. The pickaxe from Carl's main attack stays at the end of its range for 2 seconds. It also deals 10% more damage when it is at the end of the range. Jackie creates a pothole, which enemies who step on it will receive 1180 damage. Keep in mind that they can step on it for up to 10 times before it disappears. Gus explodes all the ghosts on the map. Any enemies near them are stunned for 1.2 seconds. Ems release a small wave of hairspray all around her. Enemies hit by it will be marked. Marked players will heal 75% less effectively. Stu's next main attack burns enemy for 3 seconds, which is 450 damage per second. Piper shoots out a overcooked and blackened cake. It explodes on impact, dealing 1200 damage and reveals enemies hit for 7 seconds. Frank heals 560 health per second for 4 seconds and also gains 6% damage and range increase. Bee summons 5 angry bees which seek out the nearest enemies and sting them once for 1250 damage before disappearing. Nani spawns in 3 mini peep clones that circle Nani. They eject into the bodies of the enemy they come into contact with, and the enemies affected will have lesser movement control. For 5 seconds after pressing the gadget, Edgar gives a heavy left jab instead of his regular main attack. It knocks enemies back and deals 5% more damage, but his reload speed is 5% slower as well. Bell throws down a capture net and enemies hit by it will be stunned for 1.5 seconds and will also receive 700 damage. Ash lumps a pile of trash on any nearby players. If it lands on them, it will deal 1300 damage. The next super range is increased by 30%. Angelo's next main attack decreases the target's damage by 30%. Bo shoots out one gigantic arrow towards the nearest enemy, dealing 1290 damage. Pam takes 25% less damage for the next 5 seconds. BB immediately recharges her home run bar and her next main attack will do 10% more damage. For the next 3 seconds, 20% of the damage Griff receives will go towards a tip jar. If the tip jar accumulates more than 1400 damage, the enemies will receive double the damage it collected. Grom's next main attack splits into 8 blasters instead of 4. Bonnie charges for 1 second before Clyde releases a big cannonball that rolls quickly. Enemies hit by it will be slowed for 3 seconds. Adverse effects on Gale are lowered by 50% for 6 seconds. For the next 3 seconds after pressing the gadget, Colette can go through walls and her movement speed is increased by 15%. Lola and her ego shoots 1.5 times the amount of light bullets for the next 5 seconds. Sam puts an invisible metal clamp underfoot. If enemies step on it, they are pulled directly to Sam. Mandy drinks a sugar vial and her reload speed is decreased by 20% while her movement speed is increased by 15%. Maisie creates a pressurized area around her where enemies are slowed well in the area. The cookies in her next main attack are 2 times bigger. Larry and Laurie fuses together after pressing the gadget button. The combined version of both of them have the combined health and now uses a laser gun that pierces enemies. Jean's next super will do damage up to 1500 damage while they are being pulled towards him, so the further he is from the enemy being pulled, the more damage he does. The area around Max slows down enemies and projectile by 200% for 5 seconds. Mr. P's next main attack knocks back enemy. If they hit a wall, they will also receive 950 damage. Sprout sends a small wave of storms which lasts for 4 seconds. Any enemies near it will be damaged for 600 damage per second. Byron's next super is 50% bigger and also does 15% more damage. Squid grabs the nearest enemy and puts them inside himself. The enemy then explodes for 10% of their health and are thrown away. Lou chucks multiple icicles at all enemies in the gadget radius. It can do up to 1400 damage if all icicles hit. Ralph dives out of the way and is invincible for 1 second as he dives. Fang releases 2 extra kicks when he uses his next main attack, each dealing 1100 damage. An active big egg in the map spawns 2 extra hatchlings with 10% less health. Janet reveals all the enemies in her field of vision for 6 seconds. Otis sets down a puddle of ink on the ground. If enemies set foot on it, they'll be teleported back by 10 tiles and be damaged for 500 health. Buster's next main attack marks enemies who got hit. Marked enemies will take 19% more damage for 5 seconds. Greg climbs up a tall tower of invisible boxes for 3 seconds. He does 21 more damage on the tower, but the tower has 3000 HP. If it breaks, Greg falls and takes 1800 damage. RT removes all marks. Each mark removed will heal him 1100 health. Willow shoots a lantern at her closest teammate, giving them a shield at 15% of their maximum health and a 6% damage boost for 5 seconds. Doug throws out 4 big toasted buns in a cross-like shape from himself, each dealing 1280 damage and leaves behind a fire that does 980 damage over 3 seconds. Chuck goes 300% faster when using his next super. The next main attack Charlie uses has 12% more damage and also has a 10% range boost. Miko can see where enemies are aiming for 5 seconds. Lily runs towards the nearest enemy at 600% of her usual movement speed and stabs them for 2100 damage. Crow uses the chains on his belt to wrap around the closest enemy that is already poisoned, dealing 800 damage and stunning them for 1.2 seconds. Leon turns his teammates 35% transparent for 3 seconds and during that duration, he also gives them a 15% movement speed boost. Sandy snorts for 1 second. After that, enemies near him will be knocked back and slowed for 2 seconds. Amber regains 7% of her maximum ammo per second for 4 seconds. Meg receives a shield equal to 15% of her maximum health for 4 seconds. Surge spews out a beam of concentrated juice, breaking walls and dealing up to 1420 damage over 2 seconds. Chester sets down a jack-in-the-box. It winds up once if any enemy is near it for 1 second. After winding up 3 times, it will stun enemies near it for 2 seconds. Cordelius grows a cluster of 7 mushrooms on the ground. If enemies step on it, all of them will explode, dealing 800 damage per mushroom to nearby enemies. Kid immediately recharges his super and does 6% more damage with his next super if he chooses to jump on an enemy. This was filmed when season 26 was out and Draco wasn't out.